So in food co-op, I got these giant bags of broccoli, 6 of them to be exact. So I gave a couple of them away, and I do need to use them up pretty quickly. So I'm going to use about 3 of these bags, so that'll be 6-ish pounds. And we're going to get it canned up and make some broccoli cheese soup base. And then we'll add the cheese later when we're ready to heat it up and eat it. Hey, howdy y'all, it's Angie at Whiskey Woman Whisk. Let's make some broccoli cheese soup base. So I have about 6-ish pounds of broccoli, and we're going to need about 4 big or 5 smaller ribs of celery. So I'm going to get that chopped up, and I already have some onions in the fridge that I chopped up the other day. So I've got those in a baggie ready to go. Usually I will go ahead and prep everything ahead of time, but this one's going to come together so quick and easy that it's really not even necessary. But I did have the onions done. Thank God, maybe no crying today. So we're gonna saute that celery up, and I'm putting my onions with that as well. And yes, we're gonna need some butter, a couple of tablespoons. Don't really want to add too much when we're canning, but it is okay to add just a bit while we're sauteing our celery and onions up. Of course, it's not even necessary to saute your onions and celery. They're going to get cooked in the jar with everything else when it's canning. It's a preference thing. Do it or don't, totally up to you. I'm going to saute it up a bit. I feel like it gives a little flavor. So we're going to need some chicken broth, and it's totally up to you. You can use canned chicken broth, the carton's already ready to go. You can use bouillon cubes. I'm going to use this granules by Knorr, totally up to you. And for the amount of broccoli I'm canning up, I'm going to need about 16 cups. I may have a little bit left over. It's quick and easy to just make a little bit more if needed. So get you some chicken broth ready, and it needs to be warm, at least warm, a little bit hot. It doesn't have to be boiling. So I've added all of my broccoli and carrots to a roaster. That's just easier for me. My stove is small. I only have one big burner out front, so I just tossed it all in the roaster, cranked it all the way up to high because it really just needs to barely soften up and get warmed up to put in the jars. So if you have room, you can definitely just do this in a big stock pot on top of your stove. So we are hot packing, so I do have my jars clean and in my canner, just keeping those good and hot. I've got my broth on a simmer, and my veggies are sauteing pretty good. And then of course we've got our broccoli and carrots up on high, getting those heated up and softening those a little bit. So just a matter of minutes, and we're going to start putting this all in jars and getting it canned up. And we'll get the spices going. I'm going to just add it to my broth. I'm using paprika, about two teaspoons. And then I'm also going to be adding some garlic, about 2 teaspoons, because I did not use the fresh minced. This is a preference on how much as well on that. And I'm going to add some dry mustard, also 2 teaspoons. I'm just adding all of that to my broth and just let it simmer a little bit. And then I put in a dash of nutmeg, and I really like to just kind of add that later on when I'm pureeing my broccoli and adding my milk and cheese, and then I can adjust that. I'm just going to add a little bit right now. Okay, I've pulled a couple of hot jars out, and we're going to start adding in our broccoli and carrots and start getting all of our goodies in the jars. Y'all, this is so good, and I have used it like in a broccoli rice and cheese casserole. You do not have to just use it as a broccoli cheese soup. So that's the great thing. In addition to the rules of no dairy, it is the great thing of just keeping it simple. You've got your ingredients in there. You don't have to make sure you bought broccoli and carrots and celery and all of that at the store when you're ready to make up some soup. So you can add it to your casseroles. You could also combine it. I am all about combining this soup with another soup and creating a whole nother soup. I've done that with several of the soups that I have canned up, and because all of those don't have the cream or dairy that's required, then they're simpler base ingredients that makes it so much easier to use it in different ways. So keep it versatile. I mean, because like one of the boys, he likes cream of broccoli soup, but he doesn't really care for it to be all cheesy. So we just puree this and add some half and half and make it a little bit creamy. Puree it. That's it. So we just don't put the cheese in his soup. So that works out pretty good. Y'all let me know if y'all have any other great ideas for using up this broccoli soup base. I would love to hear some more great ideas for using up my soups that I have on the shelf. About pureeing, y'all can definitely puree this a little bit beforehand, but that's just one more reason that I prefer to just keep it simple in my jar, is because I can use this later for casseroles and other things. So, and I like mine to be a little bit chunky, so when I do heat it up and fix it and add my cream, I puree it a little bit, but I don't puree it all the way. That's just a preference thing. You do you and what you enjoy and what your family enjoys. So let's get these jars all filled up, and we're gonna get it in the canner here in just a few minutes. So I just kind of equally divided up my broccoli and carrots into my jars, and I'm going to equally divide up the celery and onions that we sauteed. I'm just gonna equally divide that up into the jars. I'm just eyeballing it. You do want to leave room for broth, because that's the good stuff, and it's going to be ready to go when you get ready to prepare that. So I'm just kind of dividing that up between all of my jars. I've got 7 quarts in here, and I probably should fill up 7 quarts, and then I may even have a little bit left over. We'll see. Now we need to top this off with our broth, with all those spices that we've added, and you definitely want to maintain that 1-inch headspace in your jars, and that's for your vegetables and for your broth. You definitely want to keep it under that, under that 1-inch headspace line. To debubble every jar and make sure after debubbling that I go in here and just double check. Sometimes you will release air bubbles that will create too much headspace, so you'll need to make that adjustment and add a little bit more chicken broth if that does happen. Okay, I've got a little dish with some white vinegar in it, and I'm going to wipe my rims clean. We definitely need to make sure that there is no debris or grease from that chicken broth. There's always just a little bit. You don't want any of the spices or tiny piece of broccoli or anything to prevent that lid from sealing. Okay, I'm gonna pop my lids on, and then we're gonna get our rings on here too. And my canner is already good and heated up. And of course our jars and our broth and everything's still good and hot. Just adding all those things together. It's not super hot, it's not burning my hand, but there won't be any shock to the jars as we're putting those in the canner. And we'll be able to get that revved up as soon as we get all these jars in here. Just remember, don't over tighten your bands, the rings. Just center your lid on there, get your rings on, and just give it a little finger tightening, but not too tight. Definitely don't crank down tight. I have made that mistake and it's not pretty. Sometimes as just, I guess, checking myself, especially after I had a lid pop off in the canner, that was crazy. I'll just kind of come behind myself sometimes and unscrew it and then re-screw it again. It's kind of I don't even think about it sometimes. I just get in there and I'm about to tighten that too tight, not paying attention, and I'll just unscrew it and then re-screw it and make sure I get that finger tight and not too much. All right, we're getting these suckers in the canner. Now everybody's in the hot tub. Okay, so we want to get our lid on. You definitely want to make sure that you're checking your valve to make sure that it is clear. I blow on it just to make sure that there's no blockage there so that our steam can come out. We're going to bring this temperature up, and when it gets to a point of a good steady stream coming out, we're going to set our timer for 10 minutes and vent the canner for 10 before we put our weight on. Okay, oopsie, apparently I wasn't recording. So you're going to can up those quarts for 75 minutes, and as you can see, I started another canner full of pints, and pints will can up for 60 minutes. So after you vent for 10 minutes, then you put your weight on. Once your weight starts to dance, that's when you start your timer. So there we go, some yummy broccoli cheese soup base, or whatever you decide to do with it, like broccoli cheese casserole or chicken and broccoli and rice and cheese casserole. So many options. Anyway, I sure do appreciate y'all hanging out with me today, and if you don't mind, I would love it if you would subscribe and hit that like button and come back for more. And as always, y'all have a good one.